live from Pahrump. This is Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. This is a fill-in show for when I'm going to be absent on my normal Tuesday nights. So about 20 minutes ago, while we were editing down our shows from last night, which, by the way, if you want to learn something, search out show 31. No, 33. Show 33, and then the show that's titled Chris Real. And you will definitely learn something. Probably some of the most informative tech talks that we've had. And we learned a lot about oils, which everybody grills me on, all the questions. So I got a real petroleum engineer in here who did a great job answering our questions. And then on the second segment, we recorded a second hour. We talked about future motorcycles, emissions, and sound requirements and stuff like that, stuff that we're going to deal with, what manufacturers have to deal with, and how really the products are getting better, even though we're also bummed out about the regulations. That we're getting better and better bikes. So a couple really good shows to check into. Tonight, I do not have a host because couldn't find anybody in 10 minutes. So that didn't work. I'll just babble on myself. Actually, probably the reason last night's shows were so good is because I didn't talk so much. So take that for what it's worth. On to some other stuff. On the site, Scott Hoffman rode some of the new Dunlop tires. Check that out if you're interested in some of their tires. They're making changes and making them better, and I'm excited to ride them myself because I think that they could work better for me. So that should be good. On a couple other things, I still need to get up the KLX 300 riding impression, which we have the 230s, the dual sport, and the off-road only version done. So those are up there, and maybe I'll get to that tomorrow. And I have a really cool Honda CR450X long-term wrap-up being uploaded to the internets as soon as I have the bandwidth. Was he on his back wheel, Gabe? They know it. Yeah. The Pahrump Willie boys are alive and well, ripping up and down the back. The Navajo Willie boys, as we like to call them. They're not dead yet. So, yeah, keep it on one, bros. Send it. Good times. So I'm going to get to some of the questions that we missed out on last night, and when we get the calls, we'll break right into the calls and bring you onto the show. So Simon Hale asks, I need some help. I watched the 2019 CR450X long-term test video, and I bought a bike with 4 hours on it. I followed most of your mods, FMF muffler. He could not get the Mega Bomb yet. Open up the airbox, the JD jetting tuner, recluse clutch. The bike has a lot more power but flames out when you blip the throttle at low RPMs. I tried many different settings on the tuning, but the recommended settings work best. In other words, he was saying the ones that it comes with. The bike is unrideable in slow, rough terrain. He's talking about like big rocks. And it really confused me because I'm thinking something's wrong. So I emailed him back and I asked him, I said, hey, have you done anything? Wait. Did you pull the spark arrestor out, or did you not put the spark arrestor into the muffler? And sure enough, he had the spark arrestor out of it. But in the meantime, he also got the Mega Bomb and put it on there, and he said it made a huge difference. So good to know that the Mega Bomb really helps. I felt the same. I actually think performance-wise, it's actually does more for the bike than the muffler. It kind of helps the throttle response. That's a kind of a common thread when you put the Mega Bomb on. I think that's why you started seeing a lot of different, header type things. They come on stock bikes. Other aftermarket manufacturers started putting them on. That technology does work. So, yeah, check that out. So I don't know how it was unrideable in slow, rough terrain, but really those mufflers are not designed to be run with the spark arrestor core out there, especially when you have a Q. It's designed to have that spark arrestor quiet core inside of it. The whole muffler is designed to work with that. It's not designed to be an open muffler. It doesn't work that way. It's actually a bad design when it's run as an open muffler. So Remember that, kids. And plus, that's a lot more sound responsible. So, another one, Tom Fisher. Hey, Jimmy, got your email from my high school buddy, Andy Taylor. Andy Taylor is responsible for a lot of the design on dirt bike tests, by the way. He says, I actually ride, though. That's mean. That's a slam. My son is 13 years old and just barely 5 foot tall and at 100 pounds, currently riding a CRF 150R big wheel with a Recluse. It has been perfect and he's getting really good at technical single track, but he's about to outgrow this bike. I think a CRF 250X is too big for him. What bike should I look at? Even if we had to do a linkage and seat shaving, would the KTM 150 be good? We only ride on desert trails here in the Scottsdale area and our trips out, to southern Utah. Thanks, man. I really love the Tech Talk Taco Tuesday podcast. Keep it up. So, Tom, if he's riding a CRF 150R, a lot of times when you're coming from the two-stroke, going to a two-stroke 85 or big wheel, going up to the four-stroke is kind of a big change. It's two really big changes. But since he's already on the four-stroke, I don't think that going to the CRF 250X, and by that I don't know if you're meaning RX or the older CRF 250X, the old single pipe, we'll call it the single pipe one. I don't know if it's going to be a big jump. The biggest advantage in going to the KTM 150, which is a really good bike, is that it's going to be light. It's going to be probably, I'm going to just guess because I don't have the numbers in front of me, 25 pounds lighter than the Honda 4-stroke. So that is a big advantage. The power may not be so tame. If you go to the RX, then that's a little more high-strung, but amazingly, we found that bike to be really good on the trail too. So, I mean, if you're kind of a Honda guy, you don't have a two-stroke option, and between those two bikes, it's really going to come down to the weight. I think the 150 may not feel like it has as much torque as especially the older Honda 4-stroke. Probably a little bit less than even the new RX, but I think weight's going to be the biggest thing. And since he's riding a Recluse, I suspect you would kind of stay with the Recluse. But I honestly think at some point you should let him just do the clutch. Maybe take the Recluse out of the. I know why you have it in that thing, because if that thing stalls, if that 150 CRF 150R stalls, that's a kicking experience. So get the bike with the electric start, and then let him use the clutch for a little while at least, and then hopefully it grows like a sprout, and then you have a kid on a full size bike, and you don't have to worry about bike swapping all the time. So cool. Ryan Schulte asks, my question for the show is, what should my mindset be in a hare scrambles race when a clearly faster guy that will definitely get around you should be in while he is behind you? So what's your mindset when a really fast guy is behind you? Go as fast as hell and hope not to screw up. Be conservative and let him by and follow. And Ryan is a vet level Midwestern hare scrambles type. So Ryan, I'm going to tell you from experience in passing when I was racing off-road, and I was that fast guy, and I'm also going to tell you from experience of going out to motocross tracks where now I am in your shoes. I'm the slower guy, and there's definitely a lot faster guys out there. So I have experience in both sides of this equation. Number one, hold your line. Don't do anything surprisingly quick, fast. Don't do anything sudden, because a lot of times the guy coming behind you has already picked out where he's going to go, and he may go by you without you even having to do anything. So, and I wouldn't try to race him either. If a lot of times you can hear him coming, and if you hear him coming, if you start slowly favor over to one side or start looking for the opening, the thing is, if you kind of keep going fast and you're going to try to race into the spot where you're going to let him go around, he may already be going for that spot to pass you. I hope that kind of makes sense. And I always often found that a lot of times I would see the opening and I was pretty sure I saw it before they saw it, and I'd go ahead and go for it, and at the last second they'd swerve into me. And so sometimes just holding your line is enough, but if you start, noticeably slowing down and then slowly moving to the place you're going to go, and don't hesitate, don't telegraph it, or it's something as simple as, put your hand up to let them know, I hear you, and I'm going to get out of the way at the first moment. Just don't take too long, because same thing, when they see the opening, they're going to go for it. So hopefully that helps. But if you do let them by, follow them. Watch to see what they're doing. That's probably some of the best learning you can do. It's really hard to learn from somebody who's behind you, because if you try to keep in front of them, they're probably going to try to knock you over. So hopefully that answers your question. Hey, Luke is in there. Luke, I have a radio here that I think you can find a home for. It was probably attached to some Wolf Enduro guy, and it got jettisoned on the trail. It's never been claimed. So Luke is one of the main principals at WLF Enduro. They have a big social media following, and pretty cool. And of course, we found Christian Parker, who wants to come in, and he's going to talk politics and religion on a soon-to-be recorded Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, but he wants to go riding with me first, so he may not make it to the Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. And George, who's often in the room, I think I saw him pop up in here. He also decided to send us a tech tip, and his tech tip is, all that paper that comes in the boxes when they ship you stuff. He says save it, fold it out flat, and use it to make a clean work surface instead of a roll of paper towels. Good. That's multitasking, and good for the environment, George. That's awful nice of you. So I'm hoping that do we have any calls coming in, Gabe? No calls. I think everybody's afraid to call me. I'll be nice. I promise. I'll be nice to the first caller, but then when we have 3 in the lines, then I'm going to start, kind of clipping them pretty quick. So, Luke, you should call in. We should talk. We should talk about going trail riding, and then maybe we can talk Christian out of it. So, that's Chris Parker, actually, by the way. He's from Rottweiler, and we did a show, and if I had notes, I would know what show number we did there, but that was a good time for sure. Liu Kang commented, "My right ear loved this video." So, Lou was watching one of our KTM videos where my technical expertise was revealed, and it's only in one channel, so I just say deal with it. I should go back and fix it, actually. I wonder if I can edit that on the tubes of you. Who knows? Justin Until, and that's his name, Justin Until says, does the JD tuner come preset like the EJK does? So I'm not sure what the EJK is, but yes, JD jetting and most of those tuners tend to be sold with a preset in them, and they so it's kind of the standard thing, and it's just for stock. But usually in the instructions, they also say, hey, if you're going to run a more open exhaust, try this, or if you're going to run in this, they give you some tuning options, and then also the instructions, as they should, explain how you would tune it. And I have found that the one exact tune isn't right for everybody. You may want a little more throttle response, and there's ways you can play with, and it's bike dependent on how different ranges or different tuning zones respond to it. So, Justin, yes, the tuner comes preset is your answer. Robinson Enduro asks, and he's talking about the 2019 Yamaha WR450F. Why would anybody wanted this instead of a KTM 450 EXC? Just curious. Well, it's obvious. It's blue. It's blue, and it comes blue, and you don't have to change the plastic. So I don't know why anybody would want it compared to a KTM 500 EXC, because the KTM 500 EXC comes with a license plate. but I do like the Yamaha WR450F. If you want to read more about that, go to dirtbiketest.com, search out WR450F. I think we have a full test of it up there. Hey, and have you ever looked at our tests? I know most people don't read anymore, but if you read the tests and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll have this section that we say what they said. And most people don't see that, but when they do, they enjoy it. So down at the bottom of the test, check that out one of these times. Little secret, I got a call. Uh-oh, here we go. This could be good. Let's see if this works. I'm going to bring you into, let's see, this is Victor. Oh, okay. Victor.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, Victor, how you doing? You're live on Tech Talk Taco Wednesday this time. How you doing?
Great. How about you?
I'm not too bad. So for anybody that doesn't know, Victor's a fan of the show, and he's also the Popsicle Guy. And it sounds like you're driving, yeah? You're
yeah, a little bit here to the shop.
Probably in a rush.
Everything's good.
A rush to get to the bar, right?
No, I'm at home. I'm just driving like a block away. Well, the question is, what's your choice of patching pack in case I don't like to use like bibs or anything? If I have inner tubes on my motorcycle, I'm riding out there.
So what to pack
what's your choice of
inner tube patching? So
yeah.
I got a couple things here. So I'm gonna turn your volume down just in case somebody skids into you. We don't want to hear that. So the number one, I carry a tube with me, and even when I have a moose or I'm running something that's supposed to not get a flat, I always have a front tube with me if I'm going long distances. I'm going to have to rely on that. So number one, carry a tube because then you don't have to do anything. You pull the old one out. And I used to carry these things from Slime that were called scabs, and they were literally rub-on patches, and they were way more robust and a lot stickier than the stuff you could buy at like the bike shop, those little bike shop patches and stuff.
I see.
Because those you have to kind of scratch. They seem like they took a lot of work, and these scabs really worked good. They just didn't last very long, rolling around in your tool bag or backpack or whatever it was. But they were pretty effective. But they were only good for a few months. Like they would kind of, I don't know if they would dry out or if your tube actually, if once you blow it up, if it kind of ever goes flat or kind of loses air again, then they seem to lose their adhesion, and they would leak again. So it's a great way to get you out. And we've been on trail rides where we've patched 7 or 8 times, and luckily there was about 10 of these things in the package. So that was kind of my go-to. I've always pretty happy with that, and I never ran things like Slime inside my tubes because
no, I never do that either.
Yeah, because when you do get a flat and that stuff doesn't work, if it makes the tube wet, and a lot of times it's hard to clean off, and then when you go to adhere the stuff to it, a lot of times it leaks out again and gets in there. So that was my go-to. Remember when you were a kid and they had those patches that were in those metal trays and you'd light them on fire and they'd stick?
I was going to ask you about those. I can't find them anymore. The ones that you used to light up.
Yeah, because they're all toxic chemicals. You can't, especially in California, you can't get them. But those were good. It'd be you might be starting a forest fire out in the trail where you ride, but. So, anyways, yeah, Victor, hey, good to talk to you. Hope that answered your question.
My call.
And yeah, hopefully the scabs are still available. I mean, if George is in the chat room, he'll probably find the link to it already and have it up there. So hey, my mouth's watering. Thinking about that I'm going to Ramiro's here in a few minutes when I get done with this, but also from those popsicles you used to bring out at King of the Moto. So thanks again, buddy.
Dude, just come by anytime we're in Covina, so show
right
up and
okay.
mention Dirt Bike Test.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Victor, everybody. Fan of the show and super cool guy. Like I said, I ran into him at the finish line of one of the King of the Motos, and he's like, "Hey, little boy, do you want a popsicle?" So, yes, I did. So cool. Calls are working, Gabe. Good job on you. That's a big improvement for this show. So Robinson Enduro. Yeah, I think you have Yamaha envy is what's really, really happening. You're just afraid to admit it. So there's probably groups for you. San Felipe Bob will help. Joe Doyle asks, another good one is PRI-G. G is for gas. PRID is for diesel. It also refreshes old gas, although I've only seen it sold online. So what Joe is talking about is a fuel additive that he is happy with. And I'm not familiar with that, but he calls it PRI-G. So he says he's only seen it online as well. That's probably why I haven't seen it, because I try to stay offline and out in the real world. But somebody will maybe put that up on the thing. Hey, we've got a couple of questions. Let's see. Eduardo Rojas, what would you like more to put on a recluse on a motorcycle? Thanks. Let's see. What would you like more to put a recluse on a motorcycle? I think that's going to have to be reworded. What would you like more to put a recluse on a motorcycle? Eduardo, please repost that thing. Chris Parker is drinking 1942. Actually, at Ramiro's tonight, they have 4 new tequilas, I was told. I got the group text to our tequila restos. So I'll have that. Kim Busey asks, big bike, 1190R, deep sand, not whoops, with turns, sitting for lower center gravity or standing for control and balance, or both. Weight back and brake before turning. Boy, I wish I knew what the Andrew Short episode was. You should text, or hit DM Andrew on the Instagram. So he'll help you with that. I will tell you, with 100% certainty, 100% of the time, if I am in sand on a big bike, on an adventure bike, I am standing up if I want to control it. So if I want to make the bike do anything, I am standing up, because I need all of my weight to control the bike, to counteract what the bike is doing. If it starts going one way, that way I can steer it the other way. That way I can move it, back, forth. I control it through the foot pegs, not through the handlebars, because the handlebars are going to be, wobbling around and shaking around, kind of following the ruts, whatever they do. And my weight is always balanced on my feet. It is not forward and it is not back. It's balanced. But in saying balanced, I'm anticipating what I'm going to be doing. So it tends to usually look like I'm leaning a little bit more forward than getting over the back. That get over the back and gas it is BS. It means get out of control and get out of balance. That's what that means. And if I want less weight on the front wheel, I use the throttle to add power so it lightens up the front end. And I'll tell you another secret. A lot of times on the big bikes, it actually grabs more traction when you back the throttle off. So you spin it up and back it down. Kind of a hard concept to grasp. I have a riding school. I forgot. JimmyLewisOffroad.com. So if you want to learn how to do that, come out and see us. We have some openings in December, I believe. We don't do a whole lot of stuff. And Chris, you're on it. Sitting is not a higher center of gravity. It has to do with polar moments of inertia and some other stuff, but that's physics, and we rely on specialist experts to handle that. And even at high speed, yes, Kip, even at high speed, more so at high speed, absolutely more so at high speed, I'm standing up because things happen faster. Actually, I'll kind of get into this because I did a call into a show called Adventure Rider Radio. It's also a pretty popular podcast. And we spent an hour and a half talking about balance, just balance. Now it's the key to everything. And I think that, and people say, why do you guys focus so much on balance? All your drills are really slow. I'm never going to ride my bike that slow. And I'm saying, yeah, you probably don't want to ride your bike that slow, but when you ride your bike that slow, you have to be very acutely aware of the balance because it wants to tip over. And when it starts tipping over, it starts losing traction, and then you can't use the burst of power to kind of rekindle your balance, to give you a second chance, because there's no traction on the wheels. The bike's falling over. There's not that much weight on the tires. So we spend a lot of time working on these slow speed drills. So you have to focus on the balance. And then as you start getting comfortable, you start picking up speed. The bike gains some momentum and it has some inertia and it doesn't want to tip over anymore. And all of a sudden you feel comfortable. So you're comfortable, and then you start going faster, and then you start feeling uncomfortable again because bad stuff starts happening. If you never feel comfortable, if you never have that moment where you feel comfortable, you don't know when you're getting uncomfortable, and you don't know how much bad stuff is going to happen. And trust me, the bad stuff happens a lot quicker when you're going a lot faster. But if you tip over going slow, working on your balance, then nothing bad happens. And then you start learning about how important it is, and you carry that balance along with you as you start increasing your speed. And the reason I can go around a turn 5, 10, 15 miles an hour faster than you, the reason I can ride through sand much more effortlessly than you or someone else, is because I'm more in balance and I'm more comfortable. And how do you know if you're in balance? You can take your hands off the handlebars, but I don't suggest doing that. So we got a what? Another call? Sounds familiar. Gabe's over there. I sound like a broken record when I start talking about riding. Well, it's because you come and help out at the schools. You'll be teaching them. You are teaching them pretty soon. Let's see. So yes, even at high speed. Hopefully, Kip, that answers your question. And Dustin Vasquez says KTM 450 XC, 19 air forks or converted to single spring. Bike use, race purpose, best in the desert. Moran, what's your thoughts? Wow, 19 air forks or converted to single spring. Dustin, I think the KTM air forks are some of the best forks out there. And I'm a big fan of all the WP stuff lately. And I like the old air forks that nobody else liked, because I actually took the time to set them up and learned how the different chambers worked. I never personally had any problems with durability on them. I've never had any problems with durability on KTM air forks. Especially out here in the dusty stuff, you don't have to worry about it. It's when you get into mud and a lot of grime. Dust will get in there a little bit, but it's not too bad. I would leave the air forks alone. Play with the settings. Play with the different air pressures. Play with your clickers. And by all means, have them serviced, especially if the bike's more than 20 hours old. Have them serviced and do that. But I don't have any issues. And then if you're still running into problems, make sure that your pinch clamps on your triple clamps are torqued properly, your axle's torqued properly. It's not binding. So many guys, when they say, "Hey, my forks are junk," and if I'm at a track or someplace, somebody in the school, I say, "These forks are horrible," and I loosen up their pinch clamps, and it goes ping, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you had them bound up." They don't work very well that way. So play with them. I think you would like them, and then, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't go to some of the modified stuff is good as well. It seems like it's just, I would want a very specific reason to modify my standard suspension, especially at my size and weight and my ability level. The bikes these days are set up really well, so hopefully that works. Let's see. Mark Daniels. Mark, are you just always stalking me on the books of faces here? Shouldn't you be out writing tickets? Anyways, hey, Chris Parker created a tech tip today for removing the KTM 790 clutch. Cool. Why would you want to do that? Aren't they perfect stock? Jimmy. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to move down my list. Adam has a question about the KTM 350. and I talked about this a little bit last night because we kind of ran it into the oil discussion. But it says he's talking about the KTM 350, where I kind of noticed, and I still do notice, that the motor, especially on my 19 compared to my 16, it makes more noise. He says the motor rattle you hear is actually the shitty stock cam chain tensioner. Get the Dirt Tricks tensioner and avoid the stock one breaking, like many have already had happen. So, no, the motor rattle I not hear is not the cam chain tensioner. Absolutely 100% certain it's not. So the noise I'm hearing is and I talked with Chris about this, it's all the parts are a little bit looser. They're trying to reduce friction in that motor. Sometimes they're reducing weight, and so the cases aren't as thick, and it's not as absorbing as much noise. And with such a quiet muffler on that bike, you notice this a lot. So, and I've noticed this even on some of the race bikes. You just hear some gear rattle and things of that nature. So that's what it is. And I have had a KTM 350 cam chain tensioner go a little bit bad. So it somehow got contaminated, and it took a lot of RPMs to get that cam chain tensioner to use the oil pressure to push on it really tight. There's a certain amount of spring tension, and that spring tension wasn't enough there was some galling in the hydraulic tensioner, or some grit that had gotten in there, and it wasn't moving as freely as it should. Yes, it does happen. This was at 350 some odd hours, so it's not too surprising. That's probably the only mechanical issue that I've had with that bike, or the only thing I've really had to replace on it, and it's well over 400 hours, and it's still on the stock top end. So my sixth, and that was my 14 KTM, 2014 KTM. So still going, and my 19 has not changed audibly noise at all. And I do know what the Dirt Tricks tensioner is. It's a manual adjust cam chain tensioner, kind of like we had on a lot of old 4-strokes. So and that's a good option if you don't like the hydraulic one. The hydraulic one is just very, 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 very consistent. So, and I know way too many people that aren't smart enough to tighten a manual cam chain tensioner. So be careful. Let's see. Oh, Mark retired. We'll go out and write tickets to somebody else, Mark. Hey, thanks for watching all the time. I really do. I do appreciate it. It's guys like you that keep me on my toes. Kevin Omo asks, PDS versus linkage for rally racing. Well, you're asking the wrong guy, because I like PDS. So I would say PDS just because it's simple, and then there's no linkage hanging down. And less parts to break, lighter weight. I know how to tune a PDS shock. I know what to expect from them. Yeah, I would say PDS, but if you look at all the factory rally bikes, they have linkages, so don't ask me. The advantage of the linkage really is in all honesty is kind of twofold. Number one, by design, it allows you to run a longer shock, so you can get more control with that shock. But you always have to take into consideration what the linkage is actually doing for the leverage ratio, just like the angle of the PDS shock. So there's tuning into it. It gives you the ability to have a longer shock. It's in certain things. It also isolates some of the chassis, the shocks, the forces that go into the chassis, because instead of being bolted directly to the swing arm, which is connected more to the swing arm pivot, which is down by your feet, now the shock is hanging down there, and so some of those forces are dampened out of the chassis. I think that's probably the biggest thing that riders actually feel, more so than the performance of the shock, because it's a PDS versus a linkage, and that's my 2 cents on it. So hey, Dustin, yeah, no problems. That's what we're here for, answering questions. Back to the clipboard. You can call in. The number, if you want to call in, is 775-451-3328 while we are live. So don't ever be afraid to do that. I want to keep Gabe on his toes over there, because he's kind of currently working on editing our second show with Chris Real, which is also going to be a good one. Let's see. Christian R asks, "Hi Jimmy, I have a 2015." He says HVA. I think that stands for anyways, it's the white KTM 350 dual sport. He's 47 years old, rides aggressively in the desert, and most often dual sporting in the mountains. He says, I run the Parker DT tire in the hard direction. That's the Kenda Parker. I recommend that tire. I like it. Kenda does help me out with my off-road riding schools, so disclaimer there. But I would still run them. And I'm putting a Nitro Mousse, a normal Nitro Mousse in the tire. What would be a good match on the front tire? And I'll have a Nitro Mousse in there as well. The Kenda Parker DT front, of course. That is a great tire, especially out here in Western conditions. I run them all the time. It's a funny shaped tire, and it does scare people away because they look at the knob and it looks like the head of an eraser, especially after it gets used a little bit. But I'll tell you the trick with those tires. Always run them in the hard direction, even if you're running in intermediate terrain, because the hard direction, it has excellent braking. That's why I like these tires. They have some of the best on-the-brake performance. They stabilize, they brake straight, just really good braking performance, and just all around a very good tire. So almost everybody that I've turned those tires onto came away very impressed and didn't have too many bad things to say about them. So I think it's a good front tire. And he also asks, I'm wondering about the front 4CS fork. Now, this is a good question. I recall your articles, and I can't make it work on the smaller bumps. It's really harsh. Am I stuck getting it redone somewhere? And then when, where, who, which suspension guru? So we're going to roll back to the question I just talked to from Dustin. There's a couple tricks you can do with 4CS forks before I would send them off to a guru, because if there was ever a fork that could really use a lot of different parts inside of it, that's the fork. I was never a big fan of it, but I did find some ways to make it work. So two things you have to understand. The adjusters, both compression and rebound, are not really low-speed compression adjusters like on most forks, and kind of typically like a lot of WP stuff lately. They act more on the mid-speed valving. So that initial feel that you're looking for, it's not really going to go away with the clickers too much. And there is quite a bit of overlap, especially with the rebound on the compression. So sometimes when you want to make the compression lighter, look to the rebound adjuster on that fork. But here's the trick with that fork. It's run a little bit of negative air pressure in it. So in other words, I like putting the Motion Probe bleed screws on. Those are the ones you can just push the button and bleed the air out of the fork. But instead of doing it on the stand like you're supposed to get like a zero and no air pressure inside of it, take the bike off the stand and put some weight on it and then bleed the forks. So it'll put a little bit of negative pressure in there, and try that. And if that's not enough, push down on the bleeder and push down on the fork and then release it before the fork comes back up. You're going to put a little bit more negative pressure in there. And I had a ton of luck doing that on 4CS forks on the KTM XC and SX bikes back when they had those forks. I would tune the low speed compression using that method, and also kind of do it when the fork is warm. Like if you can do it like after practice, or after you've been riding for a little while, do it then. You can do it right in the beginning, but it will warm up and you might want to do it again. But it's kind of like it's really hard to measure what you're doing, but you kind of learn by feel what you're doing. And I was always very happy with the results in that. And again, if that fork has not been serviced, get it serviced. And before you spend all the money on the extra parts, you can do that later. If you kind of run into this harshness, it's not going away. Try doing that. And then I got an email back from him. He says, thanks for the info. I will try. Forks have just been serviced, as a previous owner had a lower spacer, had a spacer that he put in. I put the stock oil level back in. That's pretty good. And then also the oil level is pretty critical on those. The higher oil levels tend to add to the harshness, but they also added bottoming resistance. And my problem with those forks was not only the initial harshness, they didn't have the bottoming resistance that I thought they should have for having all the chambers and stuff in there. So, anyways, let's see. He says the proper springs are based on Race Tech recommendations. And I'll tell you something about Race Tech. Good suspension company. They have their own kind of theory, and Race Tech it's always been heavy springs, light valving. That was always my experience with their stuff. I don't have a ton of recent experience, so they on their scale, the springs might just be a little bit higher than most other people's scale. And then he said he definitely checked all the torques and stuff like that. So yeah, good. Thanks for the advice. Let's see. And my good friend Jim wants to know. And so Jim is one of those interesting cats that just got a smartphone. And he always gets pissed off when everybody around him is dicking around on their smartphone. And now he does it, but he still doesn't know how to get onto the show on the Facebooks just yet. So he actually called me this morning to want to know how to get in the show. And I'm like, well, you can call in the show. And I guess he's ahead of his time because he doesn't like using the new smartphone for calling people. But anyways, so he had George text in for him. He said, if the manufacturer recommends 10W40 below 32 degrees and 20W50 above 32, would it be bad to use 10W40 all the time, even above 32? And we kind of answered this last night on the show. I just didn't get into how the question got to me. The number one thing is that you have oil in your motorcycle. That came straight from Chris, and I agreed with him. Having oil in there is the first thing. Having the right viscosity in there based on the manufacturer's recommendation is also good, but I wouldn't get too carried away on the weights and the viscosities. And so what I suggest, Jim, is when you figure out how to use YouTube, you go find episode 33 and listen to all of that awesome information, and you will be somewhat smarter for the effort. So, okay. That's I think we kind of weeded through all the questions. I thought we had a few more someplace. I haven't kind of seen them pop up on the board just yet. I know we had some that were on some of our videos. By the way, we have this awesome YouTube channel. You may be listening to this on a Dirt Bike Test YouTube channel at the moment. So feel free to search around there. You can see other episodes of Tech Talk. If you want to listen to Tech Talk, it's going to be a podcast very soon. It actually kind of is if you know how to look for it, but we're not happy with where it's at. We're going to work on some of the sound quality and tune up some stuff, make it a little bit better, get some of our sponsors involved with it. It's already pretty good. And Rick MX Racer commented on our KTM 300 video, the 2020 KTM 300 video, and I feel his pain. Damn it, all I've got is a 2019 and accidentally rode a 2020, and it is a lot better. I'm going to have to save my 19... I'm going to have to give it to my 19-year-old son and open up the wallet for a 2020. Great review, Jimmy. Thank you, Rick MX Racer. Yeah, I think I said that in the video. If you don't have the money for one of these, don't buy one. That's my, kind of, I have the pain in my life is I have a lot of motorcycles. I have motorcycles that I really, really like, and I grow accustomed to them. And since I'm not like in the magazine circus that much as I used to be, a lot of times I spend time on my own bikes, and I get very comfortable on my own bike. I'm not switching onto a new bike every time I'm riding. I'm not on a motocross bike on Tuesday, an off-road bike on Wednesday, riding an adventure bike on Thursday and Friday, and then back to a motocross bike on Sunday. I'm riding my KTM 500 all of those days, or dare I say my Husaberg 570, and then that's a whole nother experience. It's kind of hard to really express how much power that bike makes, for a single cylinder. It's got a funny angle in the motor, but let me tell you, the noise that comes out of the thing, it throws like roost, like no tomorrow. But back to, riding a single bike all the time. My pain is I get to go ride all these brand new bikes, and sometimes I really like them, and I go, man, I really want this because I feel the improvements even just year to year. And that the 2020 KTM 300 is one of those bikes. I was very, very impressed with it. The gains they made in the motor, and I'm riding a 2019 300 around lately, so I'm very bummed. It's George's bike, and your bike really isn't as good as a 2020, but I'm going to do my best to make it as good as I can. But it's going to be difficult because the chassis changes are going to be the hardest things to, improve the older bike. You just can't go and like start changing your chassis. The suspension, I think we can get close. The suspension may actually be pretty close as it is, but the chassis really helps. And then every little bit, it's just enough to make you need to go down to the dealer and buy one. So, yeah, sorry about that, Rick MX Racer. We'll see how that works out. So, okay, we got a call. That's good. Oh, Craig Hunter says I didn't. Craig Hunter, why don't you call in? I'm going to give you the number right now. 775-451-3328. Call in right now, and I will answer your question. A DBT double feature. That's exactly what this is. And I didn't answer your question from yesterday. Probably didn't see it come across the board because I was just so enamored with what Chris was telling me. I was having a hard time absorbing all the information and then trying not to, have another sip of beer, kind of like I'm going to do right now. So Craig, we're waiting for your call. It's again, I can't say it out loud with my mouth. Here, let me tell you what it is. It's that was tasty. 775-451-3328. That's 775-451-3DBT. If you remember how those old rotary phones had the numbers, the letters in the dials, and I can answer your question without referring to a reference manual even. And you have, in my world, how many more minutes are we going to give them? 2? 1. It just went across the feed. The funny thing is there's a little bit of a delay from when I actually say something to when it goes out onto the dirt bikes. Hey, Craig, if you can't figure out how to dial the phone, I think you got a pretty smart son that might be able to operate that thing for you. I've seen he's pretty good on the phone. He knows how to push those buttons. So, and what and if I'm supposed to remember all those questions, that's going to be kind of tough. So if he doesn't call within 2 minutes, this version of Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, recorded on Wednesday, is over. And just in case you're wondering how you can support Dirt Bike Test, we have Dirt Bike Test t-shirts. We have a little thing. There's a button up on the thing. It says shop or store. I believe it says store. You can hit that. It'll scroll down. It takes you over to our Dirt Bike Test t-shirt store. If you order them soon, I will put them in the mail as soon as possible, but I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks, and that's why I'm doing this one now, so I can have something to go up on the Tuesday so I don't leave you guys all hanging out in the middle of nowhere. So with that, Craig's chicken to call, right? Nothing happened over there, Gabe? That's it. So with that, I'd like to say thanks for joining in. Thanks for watching, especially on a quick last minute notice. Again, check out our videos, comment on the comments below, like us, share us. When you're watching this on the YouTube, some of our Instagram handles and following links go by. Check those out. Tell everybody about them, and we will see you on the next one, and hopefully out on the trail. Cheers.